Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Notes from Chicago. I'm Ashley Phillips. Today, we are so excited to have Penny Gibbons with us. She is the founder and executive director of Trash People, which is a community cleanup organization, or that's how it started at least, and now it's so much more. Penny, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Before we get into Trash People, there's a question we like to ask everyone at the beginning of these episodes, and that is, what do you love about Chicago?
That is a great question and something that I've had a lot of opportunity to reflect on because I am very much not from here. I grew up in the UK and moved here in 2015, and I suppose had a few opportunities to move back home over the years, and somehow I'm still here. So I do love Chicago, and I think the thing that really struck me, particularly when I first moved here, and that I continue just to be so in awe about, is how when people in Chicago don't like something, they will do something about it. And I just love that. I love that energy. I love that spirit. And I think it's something that the British as a people don't have as much of. Um, and so I was really struck by it when I moved here. It's something I really enjoy. Yeah.
Did that spirit play into the creation of Trash People?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think there's just an environment here that if you want something to be different, there is a platform for you to try and make that change. I think that the community is very receptive to new ideas. Um, I think there's like a constant evolution of what's happening.
So let's talk about Trash People. How would you describe it? Is the first question, and then I'd love to hear more about kind of how you got the idea to start this.
Describing it is such a challenge because it was one thing and now it's multiple things. We started off as a single hyperlocal neighborhood cleanup group. The aspiration was really just to bring neighbors together over a shared care for community. Transparently, it started off a little bit more selfish than that. Um, I was this was in 2022, although the idea came in 2021, and I was very depressed and lonely and um, sad, and really did not find myself at that point with friends, community, um, and obviously this was sort of towards the tail end of the lockdown element of the pandemic, and I really wanted to be intentional about the new community that I found. When I first moved here, I'd met some great people, um, but eventually had learned, we maybe weren't that aligned on our values.
Mm-hmm.
And um, connecting with people that shared, maybe not on every single topic, but broadly the value set that I have was really important to me in thinking who I wanted to surround myself with. Um, and so I thought, I think the kind of person that I want to hang out with is the sort of person that would also be willing to pick up trash with strangers on a Saturday morning. And I had this idea for months and truthfully was just too scared to do anything with it. And finally, somebody on our local community page, we have an amazing community page in Logan Square that is where everyone gets their local news.
Mm-hmm.
And someone posted, does anyone have any volunteer opportunities where I can meet young people? And I just replied saying, do you want to pick up trash with me at the weekend? And that was the catalyst for actually doing something with my idea. And the Instagram was born.
Yeah.
And we became Trash People of Logan Square. And that first cleanup, we had 8 people. Half of them I already knew. Half were new people that found us through that post. And the rest of that year, we had 20 plus people at every event that we did monthly. And it was never meant to be anything more than that. That was the concept. One hyperlocal group, just in Logan Square, meet neighbors, build community, that kind of thing. But I would then receive a lot of interest from people in other neighborhoods saying, I want to do a trash people of this area. We expanded in two ways. One was then empowering other community or aspiring community organizers to set up their own groups. So the first couple of years, I think we had maybe two other groups. This year we will have 9 groups in total, which is,
Oh, wow.
yeah, a little scary. And the concept is that the people that live in that neighborhood can be so much more invested in really building those relationships that are what makes the community great, you know, cross collaboration and finding the events and creating the concepts that really will be meaningful to that neighborhood, to that community. So yeah, we kind of give them the playbook, we give them the tools, we fund the setup of of their group, and let them run with it. The other way that we sort of expanded in the early days was by creating an event called the Volunteer Fair.
Yeah.
So that aims to introduce our audience of people who care to other things to do in Chicago, because as I said, it doesn't stop with litter. That's not the biggest problem our city has. And we really want to help uplift those other organizations that are doing really amazing, impactful work. So the idea came about. There's a lot of nonprofits that do amazing things, but don't necessarily have marketing budget and find it hard to reach new volunteers, or their website might be a little bit clunky. So when a potential volunteer arrives on it, it's hard for them to navigate and they kind of get turned off and leave. So we want to break down those barriers and effectively just make it easier for somebody to start to participate. And we see, I joke a lot that picking up litter is the gateway drug to community participation. We will push it on you. Yeah, like it's such a low lift, accessible way to participate. And I would really like to think that when people just take that first step and do this first little thing, that they can see how valuable and enriching contributing and participating is, when I think as a society we've been told that it's just those like 2 check boxes on our annual quota or 2 volunteer days, and want to build it more into their lives as a general activity that they do on a regular basis. And so the Volunteer Fair really aims to do that, to shuffle people along from our activity of picking up litter to really awesome things that are going to be so impactful in the city.
How many organizations are participating in the Volunteer Fair?
It depends on the location. So my challenge has always been finding spaces that are big enough and cheap enough, ideally free. We like to host in venues that are somewhere that you'd want to go at the weekend anyway. So we're on a mission to kind of make volunteering cool. So we're not in school gymnasiums. We're in breweries and cool concert venues and things like that. So
yeah,
we've had anywhere between, the first few we had maybe 18, and the largest that we've had is 30.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I have so many questions. It started in Logan Square and now has expanded to 9 different neighborhoods. And it sounds like, but I did just want to make sure that people from those neighborhoods are approaching you to like figure out how to start something, or probably asking you, I would guess, to start something, and then you empower them to do so.
Right. Yeah. I think something that I found a really interesting reflection was that, my background is in business, I guess. I used to run a marketing agency and I managed a team, and I was a relatively confident person in that space. And yet it took me so many months, so much encouragement from friends, to actually do something with my idea. I think that a lot of people have got amazing ideas or a wonderful skill set in community organizing, if only they had someone kind of holding their hand and saying, you really can do it, and let me just make this a little bit easier for you. The personal sort of mental hurdles that you have to overcome to set up something new actually are quite considerable, or at least they were for me. And
Yeah.
so, I question, I mean, I don't think we would have started it earlier because of the pandemic, but at the same time, could this have started earlier? Could we have been doing things sooner if I had just been a little bit braver? Um, and yeah, I just want to remove those barriers for people that feel that they really can bring something to the community, but maybe don't know where to start. And budget is an issue. I recognize that I was fortunate that I had I had enough money that I could purchase some initial equipment, and also I had some very generous people that contributed. But a lot of potential organizers don't have that privilege, and so we want to fund these groups by giving them the tools that they need, both the playbook in terms of how it runs, but also the physical equipment.
So you mentioned running a marketing agency, but now this is your full-time gig. Um, when did that happen? I assume it didn't happen with that first cleanup.
No, no. So this is how I spend most of my time, but I do actually run another business, which is what
Oh,
pays my bills.
okay.
Um, which is in a similar community organizing space. I host singles events, and so that's a whole separate thing. Um, I had been here for 7 or 8 years. And I just got my green card, and truthfully, the corporate world was not doing it for me. I was very lucky. I had a great team. I had a very supportive. I work for a very supportive business, um, but I was working in marketing, and to me, I was frustrated that I was seeing this really rapid evolution of marketing techniques that ultimately were designed to get people to do something.
Yeah.
And the something is buy this thing.
Yeah.
And the thing that they're buying inevitably is something that, in the majority of cases, is something that is actually potentially actively harming the world by being something that is already in excess, or is just something that is going to fall apart straight away. And on observing, as I say, how rapidly these tools were evolving, the question just daily went through my mind is, when we know how to reach people, when we know how to influence people, why are we using these tools to get them to do something that is net negative
Yeah.
and not something that is going to be great for the world? And it felt like it was no longer aligning with my kind of core values, albeit, as I say, I was very lucky to have that opportunity. And I've been really, I've, it was a great experience in terms of learning how I can use certain strategies in this space. I think we've done a few things differently, or at least in the early days, we were doing things a little bit differently to how a lot of people organized, and I think that made a difference.
Two very interesting things you said. One, you are you are one of several people we have talked to on this podcast about starting something up, starting something new during the pandemic. Out for several people too, like building community, wanting to build community during the pandemic. And I think, you said before, like, what could I have done it sooner? Should I have done it sooner? Maybe, but I think what's interesting about the timing of it is that you built this organization, or you started this when not just you were hungry for community, but many, many people were feeling very isolated. And even now, like being out of that much more isolated time, we're isolated in other ways. And I think people are really hungry. And I think you're seeing this by people reaching out and asking, how can we do this? How can we do this in our neighborhood? Come to our neighborhood. People hungry for one, like hyper local focus on their own communities too, but also like building and getting to know people. I like that is a theme that's come up again and again. Anyway, so really exciting. I think that's like kind of one very interesting thing.
Yeah.
The second thing, and this maybe gets into the, again, like kind of the expansion of trash people into the parlor, is this idea of getting people to do something or buy something, or working on a business, or working within marketing, like getting people to do something or buy something that maybe they don't really need. So I'm wondering that kind of if that kind of idea or that feeling that you were having was a seed for the parlor, and people listening are probably like, what's the parlor? So maybe talk
Yeah,
about that too.
yeah. Yes, definitely. It was an interesting experience leaving my corporate job and suddenly not having an income, because something that I recognized in myself was my addiction to just purchasing.
Yeah.
When I remember being like incredibly stressed and going on Amazon and scrolling for something that would make my life easier. And I truly think, I don't think I was the only one.
Yeah.
I think that I think that a lot of people do this, that life is challenging. What is the latest thing that I can bring into my life that is going to take away some of the pain? Because many of us are overworked and dealing with a lot of things, but sadly more stuff isn't the solution, and none of those things helped. I can I can attest to that. um, so we've always been on the intersection of community and environment. I think the activity itself looks like it is a purely environmental one. It isn't. I think there are so many broader benefits of picking up trash with neighbors. The amount of relationships that have formed. We even have like romantic relationships between trash people, which is just so
That's great.
yeah, it's so lovely. And the number of people that have built confidence, made new friends, found jobs, roommates, gone on vacation because of the connections that they've met through our events is really, really lovely. It might look like it's an environmental action. It is that in part, but it's really about community care and all of the things that kind of come under that. And so, we've always tried to work on projects that meet more than one criteria, that solve more than one problem. So, for example, with the volunteer fair, we know that organizations need volunteers. We know that people are struggling to find volunteer opportunities. We're trying to kind of be the conduit between. And the parlor came to be through the similar cross section of focus. I was involved with several environmental organizations that did amazing recycling and reuse events. And I was also involved with several mutual aid groups that were providing resources to community members that needed them, specifically the migrants that were staying at the police stations a couple of years ago. And through those experiences, I witnessed a lot of waste and inefficiency in the donation management process. And also, in some cases, items that would be going to be recycled, which is certainly better than landfill, but items that were going to be recycled, that there was a need for by a group of people just 20 minutes down the road. And the disconnect, the lack of systems, the inefficiency, the waste that I was observing was just really frustrating to me. And frankly, the way that the parlor started was just with rage. I was so angry. I told everyone I was going to open a free store. And 3 days later, realized the magnitude of that task.
Yeah.
But because I told everyone, refused to back down. And here we are 2 years later. But it's not a free store. That was the original intent. But when I was chatting with other free store organizers after making my statement of intent, I realized that there were so many challenges that they were already experiencing, that if we were just popping up as another free store, we would also experience those challenges, and we wouldn't be alleviating any of the pressures that they were experiencing. And one of the things in particular was a lot of people that are seeking services already struggle to get to all the places that they need to go to receive those services. And so adding on another one wasn't necessarily going to be the best solution. And so we decided to kind of be a free warehouse, if you like. I say warehouse, we're in a 700 square foot church basement.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful, and we love the building and everybody in it. But we would love a warehouse. So if anybody has one that's listening, I would love to talk to them. But We have a very small space, and we are effectively now a one-stop shop for donations. We have a very long list, although it is a specific list.
Hmm.
Because of everything on that list, we know where it can go and be reused in the city. So it's a reuse project, not a recycling project, not a landfill project. Like, we try as much as possible. Anything that comes to the doors, we try and find it a purpose. But we really appreciate people sticking to the list, because if they don't, it makes our jobs a lot harder.
Yeah.
On receiving those items, we sort them. We make sure they're in good condition. We have a group of volunteers that will take home bags of washing, which is amazing. We also now have a mending club for items that came in that shouldn't have come in, that are not in reusable condition, and we have these awesome menders that will bring them back to life. And once they're in good condition, we work with a network of other nonprofits and mutual aid groups to get them to where they're needed. So the goal is to really backfill the gaps in resource needs, and make the lives of the people that are on the front lines with community distribution. We're trying to make that much easier, whilst also reducing waste, because we're aiming to make it easier for the average person to get their items to be reused.
If people want to donate, where should they take their things? And what types of things, I think, or maybe there's a list that they can
Yeah.
choose. But
Yeah,
yeah.
we have a Google sheet. So the everything is by appointment only. We don't have enough staffing to commit to weekly hours. It's primarily volunteer run. We have a little Calendly link. If people have Instagram, that is the best place right now. We are working on a website.
Mhm.
But truthfully, part of the challenge really has been that there's already enough stuff coming through our project without marketing it anymore.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's mostly been on a word of mouth basis that we've promoted it. Um, that it is really shocking to think that I could tell you exactly how many people have bought things through. I mean, it's in the hundreds. It's not in the thousands. We've have hundreds of people over the last couple of years bring items through, and just those few hundred people have actually resourced, I mean, thousands thousands of people,
Yeah.
thousands of needs, because we all as individuals have too much stuff. At the Parlor Chicago is the Instagram if people want to find out more. um, the things that we collect, primarily clothing, but that is also because there is a need
Yeah.
in the community to get that reused. So we're trying to fill the need in both ways. We're trying to fill the needs of people that need the stuff, but we're also trying to meet the need of, there is all of this stuff that needs to have a new home. How can we find it a new home? So
Yeah.
we're actually trying to kind of put the two together, and if there is a mismatch in capacity, like there is with women's clothing, for example, we try to get creative with how we can find new channels of redistributing things. And really, that's where the overconsumption comes in. I mean, no one needs to buy a single item of new clothing. We just need to build a more efficient system of sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree totally. And as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about all the times, like, collectively, my family has like cleaned out closets and how many things we've had, and like trying to figure out where's the right place to donate. Going back to the volunteer fair, through that, you get exposure to so many different, organizations who, need help or are looking for volunteers. I'm wondering if you could name a few that you think people don't know about and should know about.
I feel like none of them are known about as much as they deserve to be. And again, part of the reason that that came to be was because I'd lived here for 7 years, and when I started getting into this work, realized, oh my gosh, there's a whole other world out here that I had no clue existed, and I didn't know about any of these organizations. So some that I love or find really interesting. Digs with Dignity is one that we work with a lot. They do this really awesome job of furnishing homes for people that have been in either transitional housing or have been unhoused for a while. And that I believe there are some statistics around people being much more likely to stay in housing if their home is furnished.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people, I understand, are given are given an apartment, but are not given the additional resources to actually make it a home. Um, and so Digs do this amazing job of furnishing these homes, and they sort of take requests from people, and just really do an amazing job of bringing so much joy to these families. And every Friday they will post a reel about their Digs day, and it will bring tears to your eyes every time. So definitely Digs for Dignity. They're a big favorite. Um, One that I find two organizations that I think are really niche, and I think this is something that I love about this concept of volunteering, that whatever your passion or interest or skill, there is probably something out there, and I'm really excited about finding these kind of these weirder ones. There's an organization called Sit Stay Read, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, have you heard of them?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so
I
you can
tried to get my dog in the program and he was not wanting it enough.
no. So yeah, you can take your dog to read to kids, and I think that is just so lovely. There is an organization. I think it's quite a large one, but it's called Musicians on Call.
Okay.
And if you are musically inclined, you can take your instrument and play to people that are in the hospital. And I think that's so beautiful. And I just, until I heard of that, I never would have thought that would have been a thing. Gosh, there's so many. Yeah, I think those would be the few that jump out. I'm probably going to have lots of friends telling me, why didn't you, why didn't
Oh,
you say it? Off the top of my head, those are three. Yeah.
great. Thank you. What are some upcoming events that Trash People has, or
Mhm.
yeah, I get, or volunteer fairs, or anything where people could get involved if they want to do
Yeah.
more, or learn more?
So April is Earth Month, so we will have a full calendar. That is also the month that 4 of our 9 groups will be launching this year. So Hyde Park, Pilsen, Uptown, and Ravenswood are going to be our new areas. So we will have lots and lots of cleanups in April, and anyone is welcome to join. We do occasionally in Logan Square do a newbies only cleanup, just so that new people can get space, because sometimes the cleanups do fill up. But new people are welcome at every single event. We would love to have people there. And then the volunteer fair is back in May. So we'll be at the River Room, which is part of the Burning Bush Brewery in North Center. That's on May 3rd. And we'll have around 20 organizations. We'll squeeze a few more in if we can. And then it's going to be our first time up north. We're going to be in Evanston, albeit it's right on the border of Evanston and Rogers Park. We'll be at Palm House on Saturday, May 16th. And another 20 plus organizations there as well. So we kind of we try to curate the organizations based on the location. So the volunteer opportunities will all be within a reasonable distance of the venue that we're hosting at.
Amazing. Okay, last question. When people come visit you here in Chicago, when people come over maybe from the UK, and they ask, what should I do, Penny? What are the things I have to do while I'm in Chicago? What do you tell them that they have to go do?
I'm a big gardener, albeit all my plants are in pots, but I love plants. And so always the Garfield Park Conservatory, especially in winter. I feel like that place is just like medicine.
Yeah.
In the summer, I go up to the Botanic Gardens quite a lot, the Chicago Botanic Garden, and I would recommend that as well for anyone that likes nature. Obviously, they should join a community cleanup in whatever neighborhood they're in, and I think that volunteering or getting involved, if you know, even as a visitor, as a traveler, I think getting involved in the city, if you can find out a way to do that, is a really great way to learn something about it as well. I live in Logan. I very rarely leave the neighborhood. Of course, I'm going to tell them to go to Lula Cafe.
Yes.
Same Day Cafe is also one of my favorites. I love that place. And in the summer, of course, the Logan Square Farmers Market.
Oh,
Rude
great.
not to. So yeah, those would be my tips, I think. Yeah.
Great. Love it. Well, Penny, this was amazing. It was great to learn more about trash people, about how to get involved in cleaning up like a cleanup, but just like more involved in community and like how important that is. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was great. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Notes from Chicago. This podcast is edited and produced by Tanisha Blakely. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Notes from Chicago on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts.